everyone. Welcome back to the Zest. I'm your host, Teju. I am so excited about today's episode. You guys are in for a treat. I have Damon Sununtnasuk. I hope I said that right, Damon. The founder of Natural Cure Labs. He is a rock star, passionate entrepreneur, founder of multiple companies, a leader in the health and wellness space. And he's here to share all that he knows, some of his best practices, how he stays healthy and approaches total well-being. So welcome to the show, Damon. I'm so happy to have you. And hopefully I didn't butcher your last name. I'm so sorry if I did.
You did great. I'm thrilled to be here.
I have just enjoyed our conversations over the last, we got to know each other a couple months ago, or maybe almost a year at this point. We've been in conversation, and
it's around the time we recorded that podcast with Amber and the Art Beauty podcast.
That was maybe at the beginning.
Summer last year, I think.
Yeah, or summer of last year. Just for our viewers, funny story. I am so passionate about Damon's product, Monolaurin. You guys have probably heard me talk about Monolaurin on other episodes, in blog posts. It's something that I use for my total well-being. And I have the nickname, the Monolaurin pusher. So I'm always recommending it. And we got connected and just so jazzed because I absolutely love your product and it has been instrumental for me. I would love to kick off with you just telling us about yourself. I read that you started in big corporate. So you were at Microsoft and Google and Samsung. What was your role at these companies? And then how did you like working in corporate America?
That's right. Well, first, thanks for the very generous and kind introduction. I really appreciate it. And we love having, passionate customers like yourself. It's so wonderful to hear these stories, and when sort of the audience can be your own best marketing. But indeed, yeah. So my history is a bit of a different one. So I wasn't always an entrepreneur. I started out that way. First startup was in undergrad, and it didn't. Despite being ultra prepared and writing a full business plan, it didn't end up coming to fruition. And so, getting some experience in a larger, more established company felt like the right way to go. So that's exactly what I did. So fresh out of undergrad, I worked for some pretty large technology companies, both in the United States and abroad, which was pretty instrumental and pretty fundamental in my sort of growth and development and framing of my approach to challenges and to work.
What was that first company? I'm so curious.
It was Microsoft, yeah. So I worked for Microsoft's corporate headquarters in Seattle for a few years. I transferred to the London office to work for their UK headquarters. And from there, really my life was pivoted to a very different track. I became so enthralled with different cultures and people and ways of doing things. And so my move to London really propelled me into a longer term stay overseas. So you mentioned Google. I did some work with them in Germany, and then Samsung. I lived in Korea for several years working for their corporate headquarters. And it's been really fundamental and instrumental in my outlook on business and solving problems.
Awesome. I love London. It's one of my favorite. I spent summers in London, and it's always been one of my favorite cities. So super cool that you were there. It's funny. I think that everyone thinks entrepreneurship is like you start a business and then you blow up and make millions. It's not the case. What was that first business that you started? I'm curious about that.
Yeah. So I've always had a desire to work on projects that have the capability of solving problems for the greater good. And my first company was no different. It was a piece of software that helped magnify computer screens for visually disabled users, right? At the time, this was in, early 2000s, where the solutions that had existed were pretty crude. There was a physical screen you laid over the cover of your monitor, and that was the only way to view small text. And so the startup was trying to build a software solution that did exactly that zoomed in the text for people with visual disabilities.
Right. Very cool. Very cool. Now, how did you transition from a tech business, working at Microsoft and Google, traveling, to starting Natural Cure Labs?
Yeah, it all came together. It was really serendipitous. I think everyone's life is a collection of experiences that all sort of come together at some point to make something bigger, right? And that's exactly what had happened to me. I was working for Samsung in South Korea and relocated back to the US to Silicon Valley because my entire career had really, as we sort of hinted at, had been in sort of the tech industry, right? And what better place to come back to than the epicenter of the tech universe, which is Silicon Valley. And it was very serendipitous for many ways, right? I had come from living overseas, experiencing the benefits of social healthcare systems where like everyone had access to health solutions. Moving to a very expensive city where that wasn't the case. I was sort of in
Right.
between, jobs, and so I wasn't protected from that perspective. But I was also surrounded by people who were hyper enthusiastic about personal health and individual health goals, but also with the the fervor of the startup industry, right? Of being entrepreneurial and blazing your own path and working on things that you find personally very interesting and have a passion for. And so it's a combination of all those things that really got me exploring like what can I do to better promote my own health, to promote the health of others. You explore some of the options out there, and some of them, a lot of them have a lot of shortcomings. So it was sort of a light bulb moment where I said, we can do better, right? There's 28 million Americans out there that don't have health insurance. There are 58 million Americans that suffer from something called medication insecurity, that don't have access to the medications that they need. And I thought, wow, can we, combine my personal experiences, my desire to do something bigger and better with, some of these health needs, and that's how we started.
How interesting. And did you start off with the intent to sell supplements, or, kind of how did you arrive at that? Were there multiple iterations of the business? Walk me through that a bit.
Yeah, it was all about supplemental health, I think, at the time. Health, as you know, is a holistic approach, right? It's no one thing is going to support individual health goals. It's going to be a combination of great eating practices and getting plenty of sleep and getting physical exercise and watching what you put in your body. And so it's just one tool in a larger toolkit of considerations. But I thought that supplements were some of those things that had the greatest opportunity to do good. And again, serendipitously, I was um, speaking with some people that were ultra passionate about coconut oil and the therapeutic benefits of coconut oil. And as I sort of got me down this research rabbit hole of seeing like, wow, like what are the potential applications of some of these natural products to do good from an overall health perspective. And that's sort of how we got started.
So was your first, walk me through your first product. So did the coconut oil, kind of deep dive lead into your first product?
Absolutely.
How did you even figure out manufacturing and processes and packaging, like all of the little things that go into getting a product on the shelves? Walk me through some of those early days.
You're really bringing me back. So this is 2015. And so you're right. So it all started with research, and that's really been the foundation of the company from day one, and it continues to drive everything we do today. Everything is based on research and what the academic community has to say about particular ingredients and particular products, right? So it was around researching coconut oil and the various applications around the world, from oral health to skin health to hair health, that really got us looking into, well, if we break down coconut oil, what are the beneficial properties? And so that sort of got us on this path to lauric acid, which eventually ended with monolaurin. So lauric acid is exactly the hero of the story here. Exactly. So monolaurin is a medium chain fatty acid that's derived from, or it's derived from lauric acid, which is a medium chain fatty acid that's found primarily in really only three sources in large quantities. Coconut oil, palm kernel oil, and human breast milk. And it's an incredible substance that has an enormous amount of research. I encourage anyone listening to the call today to go poke around. And there's very authoritative websites, including PubMed. It's part of the National Institutes of Health. It's a government website that promotes and indexes, publicly available, peer-reviewed research. So if you just do a quick search for Monolaurin, you'll get over 200 different studies and references with relationship to that. But that was our target, right? Because the research was there, right? And the research was very promising. So we started looking for suppliers and manufacturers who had a lot of an alignment with the goals that we had, right? Around safety and quality and transparency, really, really critical things to get right when you're building a business that depends on the trust of your consumer to put something in their body, right? So that was paramount. So it began with the research, and then finding and assessing partners throughout the entire supply chain that could live up to the standards that we were looking to do. So it really all started with that one product and grew from there.
Amazing. Amazing. I think that with my own journey with Clean Rebellion, starting any type of product business, there's so many steps, and then there's highs and lows on that journey. Walk me through some of the highs and lows that you've experienced with, product development. And now you have so many different products launching and growing and scaling. Walk me through those high points and some of the points that you're like, oh no.
Oh, there's plenty of both. In the early days, maybe more lows than highs. But no, like as we started the call, I think that the entrepreneurial spirit was there from day one, right? Since college, I wanted to do something bigger and better and beyond my individual contributions, right? So it was really exhilarating to build something from scratch, but also terrifying at the same time, because I'm sure you and your listeners have heard of this imposter syndrome, where you feel like you don't have what it takes to be successful, that you're in a position that's beyond your own capabilities, and there's a lot of self-doubt, right? And that is a real thing. It's something that I think probably every entrepreneur experiences in their career and in their course of building and creating.
Especially as you pivot, sorry to interrupt, but especially as you pivot industries. So I, similar to you, have gone from tech to health and wellness. So it's like, that bridge, you're like, wait, this is not my native industry, and I'm having to learn a ton. So that imposter syndrome really starts to trigger, at least in my own experience.
Completely. And that coupled with the almost paranoia of getting things right, that, wow, this is a product that someone's going to put in their body. This is a product that's regulated. This is a product that is in a very competitive landscape. Like, there are so many considerations, and you don't want to get any one part wrong, because that could be disastrous for the company, for your consumer, for a lot of reasons, right? So sort of obsessing over the quality and having that be foundational, and that we talked about it just briefly, like the transparency and trust and compliance components is really the foundational elements. So the good news is that, having spent many years in sort of the formal economy and formal corporate worlds, like, you do pick up on a lot of those good, best practices. You learn about how to structure your day and how to navigate contracts and how to look for, suppliers and partners that are going to be, beneficial and help support your business in meaningful ways. And so I think those foundational experiences really help deliver on getting some of those things right, at least in the early stages, right?
Right. Absolutely. For a long time, I was very bullish on entrepreneurship is the only way to go, and corporate and, all this other stuff. Corporate isn't really the path, and, so on and so forth. But I have to say too, for myself, going back to corporate and being in corporate America, I did learn a ton in terms of business processes that have helped me grow, Clean Rebellion and launch. And I think that sometimes people discount that those experiences are really, really valuable.
Completely. I rely on my experiences that I had early in my career all the time, and not just the experiences from going through the protocols and the formalities of being in a formal or a very large business, but also the networks that you build, the good habits you pick up from, your mentors and your managers and people you aspire to sort of reflect in your own mannerisms. And those have been truly the experiences that have sort of kept with me and kept giving along the way. right? It was very, when I started my first business, I didn't have any context really. And it was going to get that context within a formal work environment that I could bring back with me and apply in the entrepreneurial space.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, kind of on this lens of imposter syndrome, I know a lot of entrepreneurs struggle or they actually don't even get started because their limiting beliefs and stories are stuck and keeping them stuck. Were there any that you had to overcome? And are there any that you're still working through today?
Yeah, gosh. Well, there's always that seed of self-doubt. I think that anyone can walk into a CVS or Walgreens and see these successful brands on the shelves and question, "Oh, could I be that? Could I compete with that? Could I replicate their success?" And it's really daunting, right? Extremely daunting. But I think the approach that is best for me is just focusing on the incremental wins, right? How can you improve and consistently raise the bar for yourself and your company by doing the right things incrementally, right? So if you see something that a large brand does really well, whether it's around community building or sort of supporting not-for-profit efforts or really connecting with the consumer, you can take pages out of their book, right? Looking at your past experiences, looking at what's being done in the industry, in the space really well, is almost like a menu of options you have to imitate. And there's a saying that says imitation is the highest form of flattery. And in that respect, I believe it is.
For sure. I couldn't agree more. Now, one of the things that I love, have always loved, so speaking of wanting to imitate, is your approach to well-being. I mean, you're managing so many things. You've got, multiple businesses. How do you do it all? Like, what is your approach to healthy living? What do you do in the morning? I was so curious. How do you, you're such a beacon of health and wellness, and, how do you do it? And what are your best practices?
Oh, thanks, Teji. That's really flattering of you to say. It's changed over time, in part because I'm always learning and trying new things, but also because honestly, the pandemic has forced us to change a lot of our own habits from a mental health and physical health perspective. So most recently, my days start with exercise in the morning. And everything I think is a combination of mental health and physical health, right? Uh, some colleagues of mine say that for their mental health, they never check their phones in the morning because that can really draw you in.
Totally.
Like you see an email that feels very urgent, it derails you from the rest of the things you had planned that morning. So in similar fashion, I get up, I head straight to the gym or go for a run. I use that opportunity to clear my mind before the day, right? And sort of have a little bit of a reset. In terms of like eating well, have you heard of this concept called flexitarianism?
Yes, I have. I have. I personally haven't practiced, but I love for you to explain what that means to you and how you, incorporate it.
Absolutely. So as we said, overall well-being is a combination of mental health, physical health, and lifestyle choices, right? And so from a eating perspective, flexitarianism is something that my girlfriend and I tried to implement every week. And I first heard about this actually when I was in corporate and when I was in Microsoft, of all places. In their cafeteria, they had a huge banner that said, "Have you ever considered being a flexitarian?" And not knowing what it was and being a very peculiar sounding word, like I had to look it up. But at the end of the day, flexitarian is basically when you make the conscious choice to not eat meat a few days a week, right? Whatever is most convenient to you. Let's say you choose 4 or 5 days a week where you don't eat meat, and the other 2 or 3, you can sort of bend the rules a little bit. What I love about this is you make the conscious choice to sort of default to the vegetarian option. And when it's more convenient or when you feel like it, you can have a meat choice, right? So if you're at a business dinner and it happens to be at a steak restaurant, you don't want to be necessarily that guy who orders a salad. Well, maybe that's your one day that you cheat a little bit. So my girlfriend and I, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday lunch, I should say, we eat vegetarian or vegan usually. And then Friday night and Saturday and Sunday, we relax the rules a little bit because, before the pandemic, it was we would be out with friends, we would be out with colleagues, we would be in the places where it was either inconvenient or not possible to select a vegetarian option. So I love that choice. I love that it puts the sort of the power in the individual, but you're also making that conscious choice to eat healthier.
Agreed. I love that approach too. And I studied economics. So the Pareto principle is something that I'm always, thinking about how to apply to my life. And I love that kind of like that 80-20. So 80% of the time you do, one thing. So not exact application, but, kind of how do you 80-20 things? And then 20% of the time you're doing another thing, and trying to figure out, the best way to segment your life in a way that doesn't feel constricting.
Right.
Which is,
well,
so amazing.
Yeah, no, in fact, I'm happy you brought up that Pareto ratio, because I was going to bring up another one on an earlier question you had said, and you just jogged my memory. I think it went back to learning and applying rules and like, how do you figure out how to be an entrepreneur, right? Well, have you heard of the 80-20-10 rule potentially?
Not, no.
Oh, I'm sorry, 70-20-10 rule.
Yeah.
Those don't add up.
I got you.
No, you had like seeded the 80-20 rule in my head.
Exactly.
And like,
exactly. No worries.
Very embarrassing. But the 70-20-10 rule basically states that of your skill set that you apply to work and on the job, only 10% really comes from academia, right? From formal learning. 20% comes from learning through others, through sort of mimicking and imitating the best practices of others, or coaching or mentorship. And then the remaining 70% really is through doing, right? Mm-hmm. So no one can really teach you how to be an entrepreneur. You just have to sort of just go and do it and learn it the hard way.
I love that so much. I couldn't agree more. And whenever I work with entrepreneurs and startups, or businesses, a lot of times people spend a lot of time in that pre-launch mode, or like, oh, I've got this idea, I want to think about it, I want to refine that. And I'm an advocate of launch, test, and move forward.
Completely. The agile methodology is the one that's actually being taught in schools today. I know this because I was recently a guest speaker at the University of Florida's Principles of Entrepreneurship class. And that was one of the questions that came up, either from the professor or one of the students, which was, which methodology would you recommend to an entrepreneur today? Labor over the world's most perfect business plan, like extrapolate and forecast out every opportunity and every blocker and challenge in every scenario, or have an MVP, like a minimally viable product, and just test fast, fail fast, and keep iterating. And I said, oh my gosh, like when I was in school and undergrad, it was the former, right? Yes. I labored over my business plan. 100%. Today, it's all about agile. It's all about being dynamic and learning fast and failing fast and iterating as rapidly as possible in response to the external stimuli. And I think that is for sure the way to go.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that like anyone that wants to start a brand, that's watching this, like that is gold advice right there. Like launch and learn. I always say like the proof is in the thank you page. You want to see how many people get to the thank you page, and then iterate from there. I love that. Which is how you've built your business. Would love to transition to Natural Cure Labs. Kind of walk us through some of your products. What are your top selling products? What are customers raving about? I know I'm raving about Monolaurin, but you've got a whole other lineup of products. Walk us through some of those.
We do. Thank you. And so the most popular and probably our foundational product is still the most sought after, which is our Monolaurin product. We have three. We have a 600 milligram capsule, we have an 800 milligram capsule, and we have a combination product, which is Monolaurin plus L-lysine. So I would consider those like the major pillars of the business, but we're deliberately and thoughtfully expanding the product lines to support other areas of immune health. So we have several immune focused products. We have, if I can do some show and tell.
Yeah, I love the show and tell.
So as I said, here is the 600 milligram product, and I'm sorry for those listening that can't see. Our 800 milligram product is one that I really enjoy because it's just a little bit easier to take. It's more economic to purchase, and it's the only capsule of its size in the market right now. I mentioned immune support. That's a 16 ingredient blend, a proprietary blend with a lot of amazing herbal extracts, botanicals, antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals. Really, really popular product. We've expanded into some more specialty products. We have a biofilm product here, which again uses various highly researched herbs and botanicals to create a proprietary formula. And most recently, this elderberry product. During the surge in demand for immune support products last year, elderberry grew 17,000% in interest, and so we had to sort of respond to consumer interest in that perspective. Last couple of products. One is, and again, everything is research, whether it's research of ingredients or research of consumer trends. According to many retail authorities, tincture products, so liquid-based extracts, are one of the fastest growing categories right now. So we launched this liquid immune support blend. Again, fantastic product, alcohol-free, cold processed to preserve a lot of its bioactivity. Really, really fantastic product. And one at the end, which we may demo if we have the time, is this dual capsule thyroid support product. It took us 9 months to develop this thing using patented technology from South Africa. And it's just a phenomenal product, amazing ingredients, sort of breakthrough capsule technology that splits the capsule in half using a vegetarian membrane. So there's a liquid side and a powder side, which is really cool.
Really interesting. How could, someone comes to your website, you've got such a diverse lineup of products. How can they integrate them into your life? Like, how could you use Monolaurin versus the biofilm product? Walk me through that a bit.
Yeah. So these products are all part of, again, a holistic approach to overall health and well-being. No one product is going to solve anyone's, personal health concerns. And by definition, no product is meant to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease. But I think that also by its name, they are supplementary. And so the overall approach to health, people, from a Monolaurin perspective, people choose to take it for a variety of reasons, overall health, digestive health, et cetera. And people can integrate it as a sort of a daily, daily driver. I don't know how else to put it. Like you would take a multivitamin every day as a part of your overall health and well-being. And many people choose to do that. Others choose to take it under times of duress. If they're feeling a little bit down, if they think that their immune system could use a little bit more support, they choose to take it at that point. But what's nice about Monolaurin specifically is that these mono and diglycerides are found on the FDA's GRAS list, and GRAS is an acronym which stands for Generally Recognized as Safe. Right. And so Monolaurin is already used in many products that people enjoy today, and many industries that they just simply wouldn't know to look into. Right. So it's used in the cosmetic industry, it's used in food preparation industry, it's used in meat processing, all for its natural properties. And so the nice thing is that you can use Monolaurin safely daily because of its sort of GRAS standing.
Right. How about lysine? That's one I'm not too familiar with.
Yeah, I have it right here. So L-lysine has some incredible research on it. We made our own lysine. L-lysine is a very popular product. It's an essential amino acid, meaning that it must be obtained through diet or supplementation. Your body can't make it on its own. Lysine is very popular, and a quick search on Amazon will find hundreds or maybe thousands of lysine options. But we chose to get into this space because, again, the research guided us there. The research behind lysine is incredible, and I encourage everyone to go onto Google Scholar or PubMed and do the research themselves. But so we wanted to make our own lysine because we didn't feel comfortable with some of the variants that were on the product. There's something called an excipient, which is really it's industry speak for like a lubricant or flow agent. Right. So encapsulation equipment is very sophisticated, very high speed equipment. And in order to ensure uniform fill within the capsule, you have to have what's called an excipient. It supports the flow of the product into the capsule. Right. And a lot of other companies choose to use either synthetic or not naturally sourced excipients to gain that sort of lubricating property that they're looking for. So things that are common are like magnesium stearate or silica or other items like that that can be found on the supplement facts label. And why we don't like that is because some of those artificial excipients can irritate the digestive system or potentially slow the absorption of the actual supplement. So we only use organic natural rice powder for ours. So this product specifically only has 3 ingredients: the lysine itself, which is naturally derived from plant sources, the vegetarian capsule, and the rice powder that is used as that flow agent.
Interesting. And then how about the biofilm product? Walk me through maybe some of what's in it, and then why would someone use that?
Yeah. So again, the biofilm is really interesting. So this product, I think, has 6 different ingredients in it, ranging from turmeric to pomegranate to sweet wormwood powder and clove. So these are compounds and herbs and extracts that people can find individually, but in conjunction, may make a really convincing proprietary formula. So biofilms, by definition, are these sort of conglomerates almost of or colonization of bacteria that sort of form this protective shield that prevents your body's natural defenses from penetrating and eliminating the pathogen. And so biofilms can build up. Actually, the most common one is probably in your mouth. So tartar is an example of a biofilm, right? It builds up on your teeth. It creates this like hard outer shell that prevents your body from breaking down in sort of the bacteria that's inside and eliminating it. So we wanted to approach that problem by researching all of the various extracts and compounds that have some really, really solid research with respect to biofilm formations.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. I think the supplement industry is just, it's like a Pandora's box. Like there's so many supplements out there. There's so many companies. You go on Amazon, as you were talking about, and type in whatever it may be that you're looking for, and there's a bajillion options, it feels like.
Right.
What is your advice to consumers when they're looking for supplements? What are some things to look for when they're reading the back of the labels? What are some things to avoid? How can we shop as informed consumers when we're buying supplements?
That's a great question. And I empathize with that sort of overwhelming sentiment that one may have, either browsing the pages of Amazon or even browsing the shelves of a CVS or a Walgreens. There are an enormous amount of choices out there, and the average customer may not know what to look for. So, we talked about excipients. So these flow agents that are used as an essential part of the manufacturing process. I prefer to look for natural alternatives like organic rice powder, which is what we use, in favor of the synthetic or not naturally derived alternatives like silica or magnesium stearate. That's one option, one example. The other things that I look for are really the compliance with labeling. It's something that the average consumer wouldn't know, but it's a dead giveaway. If your labeling is not compliant, then maybe there are some things beyond that also are being overlooked, right? So, like, are they talking about the source of the material, and are they talking about whether it's vegan or non-GMO or gluten-free or manufactured in the United States? These are triggers that I look for within the labeling. Like, are the supplement facts panel are they sort of formatted in a correct and compliant way? Those are things that I look for. And additionally, like, I just recommend everyone does their research in advance, right? I mentioned multiple times already on this call that Google Scholar and NCBI, PubMed are amazing resources, and just be an informed consumer and know what you're getting into. Know, what are the sort of weights and amounts that you're looking for in a particular supplement. Are you looking for a powder? Are you looking for an extract? Does the part of the plant mean something to you? Because that has to be explained explicitly on the label as well. Is it from a leaf or a stem or a root? Like, these are really, like, these are meaningful questions to ask, and ones that people don't necessarily know to look for.
Right. So you would recommend, do you have a process that you go through when you're evaluating supplements? Are you researching first? And of course, you're an expert. Like, what's a process, using Google, looking at key things? What's a process that our viewers can follow?
I think first getting educated on the supplement that you might be looking for. It's hard to explain this because as a representative of a company who wants to be as compliant as possible, there's a lot of things that we cannot say. But generally speaking, people look based on how they're feeling, right? So I'm looking for a solution to something that a challenge that I'm experiencing. So that's the traditional way. I don't think people really look for what is the best vitamin C. They look for like, how can I like better improve my health, right? So that's the approach that usually kicks off the research, and then you look for trusted brands that like have they have a long standing. They send their products to accredited laboratories. All of our products are sent to ISO 17025 accredited laboratories for testing. They test the fill amounts. They test for presence. They test for gluten, of course, because all of our products are gluten-free and vegan. They test for heavy metal contaminants. They test for microbials. And it's really, really important. And does your supplement, like, do they invest in these things? Because supplement industry is an interesting one because it does sit in this rather gray area where, the Food and Drug Administration, by its name, focuses a lot of energy on food and a lot of energy on drugs. And this middle space that have been carved out for dietary supplements is governed more. It's governed more or less by the DSHEA Act of the early 90s, but its enforcement is not always consistent, unfortunately. And so a lot of companies choose to cut corners or make label claims that may not be entirely truthful. They may use inferior ingredients, or they may fill their capsules with an amount of supplement that isn't really going to be super beneficial if taken as directed. So, again, it's all part of the education side, like looking for those companies that obsess with transparency and safety and quality, and just being an educated consumer when making a choice.
This is incredibly helpful. And I wanted to be mindful of time because I want to see the demo. If you could show us the new capsule that you have, which looks super cool, that would be amazing.
Absolutely. So as I teased before, this is one of our newest products. It's called Thyroid Support. It's this dual capsule that took us 9 months to develop. Let me go ahead and tear open the seal. So maybe it's a great demonstration of what to look for, right?
Right.
So we have a printed safety seal on all of our products to ensure that they're not being tampered with. So you take off the safety seal, and inside you'll find a secondary seal, right? A foil seal that protects the inside of the bottle. And you take it out, or take off the foil seal, and inside we have a cotton pack. And this is also something that—
Why the cotton pack? I've always wondered.
Why the cotton pack? Exactly. Yeah. Well, because these supplements get really thrown around in transit, right? Yeah. And it's to help prevent, the settling of the capsule. It's meant to help prevent damage to the contents. And again, it's one of those little— it's a very small touch that not everyone necessarily picks up on, because it's extra effort and extra cost to include it. So it's something that we like. Again, we obsess over the experience that our customers have. We obsess over the quality. And so we don't cut corners with respect to that.
And then you mentioned the ISO, and I'm going to forget the rest of it. Is that printed on your labels, and do most companies print that on their labels?
No, so we do not, because in order to, these like printing, these official governing bodies, I think, is either discouraged or not allowed by the governing bodies themselves, right? There are some programs you can participate in, like UL is another authoritative body that does GMP certifications, among other things. And so you can pay to have UL inspect your products and approve them, and pay them a royalty to get to use their mark on your bottle. We don't do that. It's really expensive. We do the testing itself. We have all the certificates of analysis. We have everything like in a dossier of supporting materials for every lot and every product. It's just that, being very conservative, we don't want to overstep any lines and print it on the actual bottle.
Totally makes sense. And that's good to know too, for all consumers, that research is there, and but it's not something that gets printed on bottles, which I didn't know.
Not necessarily, but you can usually find it on manufacturers' websites, including our own.
Okay, very cool.
So again, if apologies to everyone listening and not watching, but here is the example of the
Oh, how
capsule
cool
itself.
is that?
Yeah.
Wow.
So really cool. The bubble of air is very deliberate. It's like
Wow.
part of the manufacturing process. I learned a lot about methodologies to prevent splashing and when dealing with these materials, because like you cannot have any material splash when you fill the capsule, right? Because it would damage the outside and it would not allow for a successful seal of the capsule itself. We use a lichen derived vitamin D source for this capsule because vitamin D, a lot of people don't know, is traditionally derived from lamb's wool.
Oh,
and
I didn't know that.
indeed, not a lot of people do. But for some people who are who are sensitive to having a truly vegan option, one could make the argument that lamb's wool derived vitamin D probably isn't vegan. So we spent the extra effort and resources to find lichen sourced vitamin D, which is pretty cool. I would be remiss if I didn't mention another product. So last year, during the throes of the uncertainty and self help, we actually expanded our product line to include other members of the family, you could say. So we launched a brand new line of pet multivitamins.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so these are really cool. Our new brand is called Vita Tails. These are specially made soft chews for dogs. They have 30 different active ingredients in them. It's sort of an all-in-one vitamin. It's meant to support, healthy coat and joint and digestion. Has probiotics in it and overall vitality for your furry friend. And we feel great about this product. It's made in a food grade manufacturing facility. It's cold extruded to preserve a lot of the active ingredients like the probiotics, et cetera. And we're really thrilled to be expanding our expertise from human supplements to now pet supplements.
I love it. I love it. One of my things is I want to get a dog soon. So now I know where to get supplements, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
I love it. I could chat with you all day, but I know you're super busy and have to go. So I would just love to, where can we find you on social media? And then a quick, what's next? You have expanded your product line. What's next? And then, yes, where can our customers and our viewers go to shop your products?
Yeah, so we can be found on all major social media channels under Natural Cure Labs. We're not the most active brand out there on social media, again, because we labor over trying to be as compliant as possible. And there's a lot of things our lawyers don't allow us to say or do or interact with. And social media is one of those highly scrutinized channels where you have to be super careful. So we are there. You can find us there. You'll find actually that just yesterday, the American Business Awards announced their 2021 winners, and we were voted Company of the Year for health products and services, second year in a row. Yeah. So that is on our social media. That's something we can say. So we're very, very proud of that.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And what's next for us in the future? Well, we're in the middle of actually going through one of the most challenging things I think any company or brand can do, which is pivoting brands, right? Oh, wow. So we have the VitaTails brand, which we're really proud of for our pet supplements. And for our human supplements, we are in the process of changing over from Natural Cure to a newly reimagined brand called Palmera Health. Ooh. And we think that this new brand change will be a better reflection of the principles and compliance related nature of the company. Palmera is a fictitious word, but it's derived from a Greek or a Roman word called palmarius. And palmarius meant to indicate something extraordinary or someone very special, because a palm frond was given as like the award to the victor of a competition, right? So palmarius is someone who is like a victor or someone who's been extraordinary. So we took that as the root, in the Latin root, and we made Palmera. And so we're excited to sort of relaunch our brand as Palmera Health, again, indicating that it's a little bit more aligned with who we are as a company. And And so keep your eyes out for that.
I cannot wait. You'll have to let us know as soon as it launches. We'll be sharing and I'll be fangirling all of your stuff. As always.
You're so kind.
Congratulations. That's super exciting. And I know how much work it is to rebrand and relaunch everything. So
something I wouldn't wish on my worst enemies.
Seriously, hats off to you. A vacation will be in order once you're, fully launched, relaunched.
Indeed.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. You have to check out Follow Natural Cure Labs. Go to their website. Amazing products, stuff I use for myself all the time. So super grateful for you taking the time today. This has been an incredible conversation. I always learn so much from you. So, honored and humbled to have these conversations with you.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Damon.